Whoa. Well, hello there, fellow Eagles fans. It's been a minute since I did a Season of the Fan video, hasn't it? I almost want to say the last one I did for the season was right when the MLB playoffs was starting, and I apologize for the absence. You know, just a bundle of things been going on, and I won't get into all of it, but you know, stuff with life. Obviously, back in the fall, you had that kind of unexpected, you know, World Series run by the Phillies, and that took a lot of my attention away, you know, from making this series. And then the holidays kind of crept up, and then it just, you know, got to be, yeah. I got a little, you know, into the other series, the In the Life series, and getting pickups and talking about stuff, and the jersey game and hat game and whatever. And yeah, I mean, that's a big part of my life too. So I just didn't really, you know, my fault. I just didn't get around to filming videos every week for my beloved Eagles, right? But they certainly had a great season. Regular season with the franchise record 14 wins, which of course now in an 18-game season, or 18-week season I should say, 17-game season, you're going to have a lot of franchise records now, right? Because of the extra game, and that just kind of goes with it. But 14-3 record. They did get, as we know, the number one seed in the NFC playoffs on the last week of the regular season against those New York Football Giants. And listen, there was a lot of trepidation going into the playoffs because, of course, Jalen was coming off an injury, and Lane Johnson was coming off an injury, and we still don't have, you know, Avonte Maddox, and, you know, other players too were banged up, coming back. You know, I remember back in 2017, which of course is the last time the Eagles were in the NFC title game, and they went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl 52. Going into the playoffs that year, there was a lot of nerves. There was a lot of trepidation. Remember, this is before the Eagles won their first ever franchise Super Bowl title. So there was all this kind of weighing heavy on our shoulders and on our minds because of how the team looked the last few weeks going into the playoffs, where there was that ugly win against the Raiders, I believe, like Christmas Eve or whatever, sometime around Christmas, right? They won the game, but it was a low-scoring game, and Nick Foles didn't look that great, and oh my goodness, you know, what's going on? We won the game, but oh, I don't know, you know. And then, of course, that meaningless last game of the regular season against Dallas, when it was just ugly, and the Eagles had the, you know, I think the starters only played a series or two, and Nick Foles threw an interception. And I remember the talk around sports talk radio after that game, and I think the Eagles lost like 6-0. It was an ugly game, and it meant absolutely nothing. The Eagles had everything wrapped up at that time. They had the number one seed wrapped up early. They were just playing out the string. Starters only played so long. It was like a preseason game, and the fan base was just on edge. And oh my God, can Foles do this? And you know, there was talk about starting Nate Sudfeld, for God's sakes, in the playoffs. The third-string quarterback, not due to injury, but because Nick Foles didn't look that great at the end of the season. And, you know, how are we going to win with this? And how's this going to happen? And that first half, I remember in the divisional round against Atlanta, it was ugly. And look, things broke our way. The ball bounces off Keanu Neal's knee, and it goes to Torrey Smith, and it led to a field goal to end the half. And it was ugly. But then the second half, from that second half of that game on, the ugliness went away, and they just turned on the light bulb, and it was just guns firing ever since. I remember that billboard that was up, St. Nick, you know, we believe in you, win the Super Bowl, you know, everything. But I say that to say this. This season, yet again, we're in a position where the Eagles can be the number one seed. And yeah, it wasn't pretty down the stretch, but we didn't have our starting quarterback down the stretch until that last game against the Giants. 2 games at Dallas, home against the Saints, and that Saint game was as ugly as you're going to see on New Year's Day. Both losses, chances to win the number 1 seed right there and then, division crown, everything. So it came down to week 18, and Jalen played. He came back. Was he great? No, but did he do enough to win the game? Yes. And that's all the Eagles had to do that week, was win that game. That's all they had to do. It didn't matter style points. You put up 40 points, whatever. They did enough to win the game. And I know it got close there at the very end where you had that crazy touchdown by Galladay, and the nerves started setting in again. And it came down to, recovering an onside kick, but the Eagles were going to win that game. I might have to remind, we do own the Giants. That's a team that they know it, we know it, their fans know it, we know it. They have 2 logos on their helmet, the NY and the Eagles logo, because they're owned by both. Okay, at this point, it wasn't always that way, but it certainly is now, okay? So the Eagles won that game against the Giants' second and third stringers, and the Eagles had, more on the line. The Giants already had everything wrapped up. The Eagles did what they had to do to win the game. But there were still nerves, and there were still questions, because what about Jalen's shoulder? Is he really, can he play his game, right? And you talk about the other injuries, Lane Johnson, how's he going to look, and all this and that. And throughout the week, this little murmur started getting louder and louder that, the Giants are this hot team. I mean, because they beat the Vikings with 1 o'clock Kurt as the quarterback, or I guess in Minnesota it's noon Kurt. I didn't see it. Did the Giants play a good game that week? Yes, they did. They earned that win. It was a road win against a team that hadn't won a playoff game in a very long time, and they got kind of chesty, and their fans got kind of chesty, and the media got kind of chesty about the Giants. And, look at the big bad Giants are coming to Philly. This is what... I think, the Eagles heard that too. And there's a lot of pride on that team. Let's not forget, there's some players that won a Super Bowl on this team. There's a lot of leadership on this team. So what did the Eagles do last night? They heard it. They know. Everyone's talking about what the Giants are going to do, and what can the Eagles do? Can they still be that team that they looked like earlier in the year when they were just thumping teams left and right? The Eagles showed last night that, yes, they are. Oh, yes, they still are. Jalen looks healthy. Lane Johnson, listen, that injury, it's not going to heal, but he's still Lane Johnson. They looked dynamic again last night. 38-7, which ironically is the same score. We go back to 2017 and Super Bowl 52. 38-7 was the score that they beat the Vikings in the NFC title game. It's just remarkable how things kind of come full circle. Now, that was the NFC title game. This was the divisional round, but the same score. That's pretty crazy. The last 2 playoff wins at Lincoln Financial Field have been 38-7 scores. That's pretty ironic. So the Eagles creamed the Giants, and they're back in the NFC title game. And it's a very exciting thing. And no matter if they play Dallas or San Francisco, they're at home. And I give them a chance against either team. Now, what did I say before the season started? And I know I didn't make a lot of videos this year, and I'm sorry about that yet again. What did I say before the season started about what I wanted to see out of Jalen Hurts? I didn't say MVP. I said I want to see him play at an all-pro caliber. I want to see him play at all-pro caliber quarterback play. And that meant I wanted to see him improve in the passing game. We all wanted that. I'm not saying anything that is something you haven't heard before. The biggest question mark about Jalen Hurts going into this season is, can he improve as a passer? We know that he's a very athletically gifted quarterback. He can get out of trouble. He can use his feet to get away from, would-be tacklers and just be one of those, athletic quarterbacks, the scrambling quarterbacks that we've certainly seen in this town a time or two, but also that there's been around the league, right? We know that Jalen can do that. We saw that last year. There's nothing new about that, right? We know he has a great head on his shoulders. He's a very, work ethic type of player, a leader. The locker room certainly respects him. He has control of the locker room. He's that, right? He's that guy. But the biggest question mark coming into this season was, can he improve to be a passer? Because, obviously you have a Devontae Smith who you had last season as a rookie, playing really well. You have other players. You brought in A.J. Brown. You have Dallas Goedert. You have a great running game. We knew that going into this season because they led the league in rushing a year ago when they decided they wanted to run the ball at the second half of the year, and they started rattling off some wins, and they made the playoffs as a wild card because of it. But can he improve as a passer? And that's what I wanted to see, because I felt he had it in him because of his work ethic and because of just, that's the type of guy he is. Now, did I see this coming this season? No. No one could say with a straight face that they saw this coming. But he certainly has improved as a passer, and not just making the deep pass. I mean, the deep ball is nice. I always say, in an offense, that's like the sexy play. That's the ooh and ah play, right? That's the shock and awe type of play. That's the deep ball. And they have the receivers to go and get it in either Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown. But it's those intermediate passes. It's the window passes. It's the throwing the receivers open. It's the slant patterns, right? The little 7-8 yards that then the receiver catches and goes for 20-plus, 30-plus yards, and they have the receivers to do that too. Can he do that? Can he be that guy? I know he's athletic. I know he can get away from sacks and tackles. I want to see him, though, improve as a passer. Then I know, okay, I can put all the eggs in the basket. We're good with number one. We're good with him. Not only has he done it, he excelled at it this season. Remarkable season that he had. Not just running the ball and scoring touchdowns with his feet, which he did, but passing the ball and making those pinpoint passes. Started last night. I think the second play of the game now was a deep pass to Devontae Smith, but that was perfectly placed. That's a pass even last season I don't think Jalen makes. He either overthrows him, maybe underthrows him. That ball's not right there. Oh, it was there last night. And we've seen many a pass like that this season, that the pass was there on time, hit the target, either get a good chunk of yards, or you get maybe you go from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 3, make it a manageable 2nd, 3rd down. We've seen that all season from him, and he's really improved. It's really remarkable if you think about just how much he's improved from last season to this season, and that's a testament to him. And listen, I will raise my hand. I was one of those years ago when they drafted Jalen Hurts. I said, what are they doing? They have other needs, and they did at that time. They could have drafted a linebacker. You could have drafted a safety. You could have drafted a defensive lineman, maybe another receiver, whatever it was at that time. They had a lot of needs, and they drafted Jalen. And as it turns out, that was a stroke of genius, because they saw something. Now, I don't think they drafted Jalen with the intention that he was going to be their guy that quick. I think I do think they still believed in Carson, but they wanted an insurance plan in case Carson got hurt again, which Carson Wentz got hurt quite often, as we know. And so they draft Jalen Hurts, now again in the 2nd round. And that's, I think, what the biggest question mark was, why they did it at the time. Not just they drafted another quarterback, but in the 2nd round. Well, as it turns out, it was the best thing they could have done, because Carson went the other direction. I mean, you talk about two different guys, and Carson could not handle it. He could not handle adversity. And listen, in some ways it was a bit unfair. Carson, back in 2017, he was as big a reason as why the team had the number 1 seed in the home field in the playoffs. And I always give him credit for that. He was an MVP candidate. He played at an MVP level. If he didn't get hurt in LA, he would have been the league MVP instead of Tom Brady. And that's unquestionable. The fact is, he got hurt. He watched the team win the Super Bowl. The backup, Nick Foles, came in, not only won the Super Bowl, but was Super Bowl MVP. The following season, Carson comes back. He doesn't stay very long. He gets hurt again. Nick Foles again. The team goes on a magic carpet ride. They go to the playoffs. They win the double doink game in Chicago, almost beat the Saints in New Orleans. And then it was just all downhill from that point on. Now, Carson did have a nice little end to the season after. I think they rolled off 4 straight wins, made the playoffs, I think as division champions, and then lost the game at home to Seattle in the wild card round after Carson got knocked out by Jadeveon Clowney, and that was the end of Carson. I mean, that was it. That was, you kind of knew. Next season was just horrible, and it really started that downward trend. And enter Jalen Hurts, and the rest is history. Now, I will say this, what the Eagles were able to accomplish in a short period of time, you talk about paying a quarterback to be your franchise quarterback, and then soon after that, you end up trading him. Some years later, you move on from the coach that won your first ever Super Bowl. You talk about as unstable as an organization can be. That was it. And you're talking about just a few short years later, they're back in the NFC title game with a new coach and a new QB who's going to be their franchise QB. Not a lot of teams can say that. That's a very rare thing, and we're very fortunate in that regard that we do have the powers that be in the front office that was able to change this thing and turn this thing around as quick as they were. And they took some chances. I mean, Nick Sirianni, that's a chance getting him as the coach, right? You just don't know. He doesn't have that head coaching background. Well, he's proven it, right? You do draft Jalen Hurts in the second round. You take a chance there. He ends up being your quarterback. There's things he had to improve on this offseason, which he did, to his credit. And now he's an MVP candidate this season. I think Pat Mahomes is going to get it, and I'm okay with that. I'd rather Pat Mahomes gets the league MVP and Jalen gets a Super Bowl MVP. I'll take that every day of the week. Usually the league MVP doesn't end up winning a Super Bowl anyhow. It's just funny how that works. But it's very rare that you see a turnaround that quick. And again, that say a lot about the stability of the franchise and what this franchise has been for the most part since Jeffrey Lurie's been an owner. Yes, there's been moments of what are they doing? There's been some infighting. There's been a lot of things. But at the same time, at the end of the day, the one thing they've been consistent at has been being a stable organization and winning a lot of football games. Now, they only have the one Super Bowl title under Jeffrey Lurie's time, but they have been one of the better franchises in the league in that time. You think about, I believe this is now 7 NFC title game appearances since he took over. They've been to a couple Super Bowls. They won a Super Bowl title during his stewardship here. Yes, some of the coaches have changed. The players have changed. That's going to happen with any owner. But the difference is, are you succeeding more years than not? Are you playing in the playoffs more years than not? And the answer to that is yes, they have. And now here we are again in 2023, going on another playoff run. Won a game last night in smash fashion, 38-7, and now they have a chance to get to another Super Bowl, which would be tremendous. Now, obviously, whoever they play, whether it's San Fran or Dallas, it's a tough opponent. You're going to play tough opponents at this time. That's what the playoffs are. We're going to talk more about their opponent as we get there. Later in the week, because we'll know who they're playing then. We don't know right now. That game still has to be played later tonight. But it's an exciting thing. I think we're in a great time right here in Philadelphia sports. I think that we kind of have a little renaissance going. It's great because a lot of years it hasn't been this way, right? You do see the turnaround that the Phillies have made. I understand that they did lose the World Series, but they got there, and they kind of got there unexpectedly as it was, as a wild card, but they got there and they had a lot of success, and they have a front office that's not afraid to make moves, and they have a lot of good young talent coming up too through the system. Now it all has to work, I get that, but they have a lot of opportunity at being one of the better teams in the National League, and certainly fight for National League titles with the Mets and Atlanta over the next few years, I would imagine, and certainly make playoff runs as they did, last season. Now, is every year going to end in the World Series? No, it doesn't for any team. I don't care who you are. But the fact is they're going to be in the hunt more times than not, and they have an organization that's not afraid to spend that stupid money and get the players if it needs going out and getting players. And even deep into the offseason, they're making trades. They got a trade for the Soto from the Tigers, which could be a really valuable piece going into this season. So we have a front office there that's willing to do what it takes to win and to consistently win. We couldn't have said that some time ago, right? Where we were going through the lean years. Now you have the Eagles team who's, this season isn't a fluke year. And I know they have decisions to make after the season. Who do you bring back and stuff like that? They have a couple one-year contracts that they're going to have to find out. But do I believe that Howie is going to be able to figure it out? Absolutely. The man is the master of the cap, and he's the master of the trade. And they make in-season moves that work out. Whether it was Lenvale Joseph or Ndamukong Suh, who wanted to come here. And oh, by the way, when you have a team that's winning, veteran players want to play for those teams, and they'll take a hit in the money if it means playing for a winner with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. You've seen other franchises do it out throughout the years. The Eagles are one of those franchises right now. This is only the beginning. Regardless of how the game goes next weekend, this is only the beginning, because you have a young head coach, you have a young could be possible franchise quarterback, and you have a front office that's willing to do what it takes to win. And that's all we can ask for as a fan base. Now, I know some years ago, look, after we won Super Bowl 52, as high as we all were, we thought we had it, right? Oh, we have that coach, we have that quarterback, and he'll be back, and we're going to win with Wentz going forward. Hey, I said it. I'll raise my hand. But it didn't work out, but they were able to recover. And again, that says a lot about this franchise, because a lot of franchises would have been in the dumps for a long time. You talk about possibly even a decade with something like that just backfired on them the way it did for the Eagles. The Eagles were able to overcome it, and here we are again, one win away from a Super Bowl. And that's honestly all you can ask for as a fan. Have success. Take those progressive steps forward. Don't go backwards. Let's go forwards, and that's what the Eagles have done. We're in a good spot. Like I said, I mentioned about the Phillies. I mentioned about the Eagles now. The Sixers, hey, I know we can't get out of the second round, but eventually they have to. This just can't keep happening every year, can it? They're one of the better teams in the NBA right now. They're one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference right now. I believe they're right up there as a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference with Milwaukee or whatever it is right now, right? It's going to be hard to catch Boston this year. I don't really care about that. I just want to be one of the top seeds in the East and have a shot at least of having some home playoff series, right? And maybe getting out of the second round this year, which would be nice. So we do have one of the better teams in the NBA with some absolute superstar talent on this team. You look at the Flyers and look at that. Yet again, they're going to miss out on generational talent. And it does bother me to an extent, but I'm happy with seeing how some of the young players on this team are playing. They're playing with a lot of heart and effort. And, going into this season, I didn't even think we were going to see anything out of this team. So they're showing me a little more than I thought I would see. Now, again, am I upset we're going to lose out on the Bedard sweepstakes? Yeah. I'm upset we didn't go after Johnny Gaudreau in the offseason. But then again, you're seeing progression from some of the young players, and these young players are going to be the future of this franchise, and that's a good thing. I don't expect them to really do a lot. I don't expect them to make a big playoff run, but then again, I didn't expect it out of the Phillies this season. I just wanted to dip the toes in the play. Oh, we swam in that ocean this postseason. So you never know. Hockey's kind of a funny game, too. A pounce here with the puck, a bounce there, and you're going on a run, right? Who thought in 2010 the Flyers are going to be in the Stanley Cup Finals that year? It just worked out. I'm not saying Stanley Cup Finals. What I'm saying is I like the way they're playing, and I think they're playing hard every night, and they're giving you effort. And that's what you want to see. They're not one of the upper echelon teams, and they're not supposed to be this year. But just give me a good, solid year with something that at least I can hang my hat on going forward, and I think that's what we're seeing out of them. And we do have, and I know soccer is all right, but it is a team that I enjoy watching in town. The Philadelphia Union are one of the better MLS teams in the league. They were in the MLS Cup final a season ago, losing in extra time, which I still think is stupid. They should have They should just have sudden death. But they came that close to winning it against LA last year, and they're going to be one of the better teams in the MLS over the next however many years, right? Because they're built for that. They're built for the future as well. A lot of good things going in Philly, and it's not always the case. We've had a lot of bad around here. I don't have to tell Philly fans that, right? We know. So it's nice to have a time now where we have a lot of teams that are in the hunt, making runs. The Phillies did it. The Union did it. The Eagles are doing it. I mean, can you imagine? I know that the first two didn't end in championships per se, but we have an opportunity. We're one win away from having three of our teams in one sports calendar year getting to a championship game or series in the respective sport. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, and I hope to win it. Right, just getting there is nice, and even when it's unexpected, you still want to win. But it's still pretty cool, and it shows that the progression is there in these teams, and we're in a good spot right now in Philadelphia sports land, which we aren't always, and it's been rough for many years, as we know. But it's nice to see it when things are turning around. We have a lot to look forward to. We really do, and I'm happy for that. But on to the Eagles. Listen. Great performance last night, 38-7. I think they squashed a lot of the doubters, right? Some of those talking heads on the radio and whatever saying, I don't know. Danny Jones, he's coming along. He's playing his best football. They didn't look so last night. It's hard to win in South Philly for an opposing team, particularly in the playoffs. You can ask some baseball teams about that in the MLB playoffs this past season, right? The Braves, I think they still hear the Phillies fans in their head, the cheering in their head when they wake up in the morning. And the Padres, all right. So the Astros are they're a dynasty. You know, sometimes you're just going to lose to a team like that, right? But the Phillies have a chance to maybe do that. The Eagles have a chance to maybe do that, to be that team, right? Without the cheating. So I had to throw a little rib in there at the Astro fans. But anyhow, it's a good time to be a Philadelphia sports fan, and certainly an Eagles fan. And here we are, like it was in 2017, the number one seed in the NFC playoffs, and a chance to win a home playoff game to get to the Super Bowl. And if it's against Dallas, oh, a man can dream. Oh man, I was too young for 1980. You know, when they had the Kelly Greens and they beat Dallas. I'd like to see that. I know I'm preaching to the choir with Eagle fans, right? No, nothing we would love more than to beat Dallas in the NFC title game to go. Can you imagine having a playoffs where we beat the Giants and Dallas to go to a Super Bowl? That's just storybook time, right? I mean, that's like the ultimate dream. But we'll see. Hey, it should be a good game today. San Francisco and Dallas in the divisional round in San Fran. Probably have another good one today in Buffalo and Cincinnati. So I think we're going to have a couple good games. And as Eagle fans, we can just sit back and put the feet up, right? And then see what happens and see who we play next Sunday at 3 o'clock Eastern at Lincoln Financial Field. That place is going to be nuts. Doesn't matter who they're playing. It's going to be nuts. So sorry for the long absence in the season of the fan series. Just a lot was going on. It's really, I'm not trying to make not trying to make excuses of it, but things happen. But I'm back here. I'll be here for the playoff run, and hopefully we'll have some more weeks to talk about it, right? We're going to break down whoever they play. We're going to talk about that later in the week, and then obviously after the game we'll break it down too. But you all take care, and what do you always got to do? You got to leave the like button, right? Like. You got to make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you're always notified to future content by yours truly in whatever series I might do. All right, everyone, let's go Birds! NFC Championship game at the Link in South Philly next Sunday at 3 p.m. So excited. All right, everyone, take care.